Hello, everybody. It's Dave Neal, stand-up comic and host of Bachelor Nation News. Happy Saturday morning or afternoon to everyone out there. Got a little update here. Zach speaks, but no apology yet. He actually, we covered yesterday, he said he has no regrets, and now he says, I do regret this. And, of course, discussing the way he handled the conversation with Greer. He says, I could have delivered my sentiment in a calmer way. I'm going to share that clip. It's hot off the press for you guys right now. Also, I'm going to share a clip of my interview with Dr. Diane Strakowski, who actually uses proper terms to discuss what we might be seeing on the show. Of course, as a psychologist, she doesn't actually get the chance to talk to Zach on a one-on-one, but from her point of view, she discusses what she thought about that incident. We're going to share a clip of that, and then we'll have the full episode, the full podcast delivered on Bachelor Rush Hour. But first, let's see what Zach has to say in his this quick TikTok from Variety magazine.
Watching it back, I completely empathize with her. I think she was really just trying to connect and relate with me when I had COVID, and really I was just already frustrated with everything kind of, going on. And, I definitely could have delivered like my sentiment in a lot more of a respectful way and a calmer way, it was just like one of those conversations that just was off, and it was no excuse. Like I should have responded better. So I totally 100% get where she's coming from.
So he says he gets where she's coming from. He didn't apologize, and I'm not one of those apology hawks. He has to apologize. They filmed the Women Tell All last night, according to Reality Steve. Women Tell All tapes this Friday, which was last night. So they've probably recorded that. We'll have to see if she calls him out or what the conversation happens. Wouldn't be surprised if she does. Here she was just 3 days ago, said women who care about their careers are hot. Now, the interesting part, though, is that, I don't know if Zach, he's obviously not getting properly cross-examined here, but I don't think he necessarily quite gets it. He goes, I could have delivered what I was trying to say better, but what he was trying to say was his journey on the show should not be compared to sales. So I think the issue wasn't the way he came off, but it was the fact that he was saying this is more important to me than what your sales job is to you. And we could never know that fully. And I think that's why a lot of people were triggered in their response, because they were like, are you kidding me, Zach? Like this, you don't get to choose that, just because just because you're the star of your show doesn't mean I'm not the star of mine. And of course, what Dr. Diane has to say about that right now is very interesting, because when asked if it was a red flag, she said not quite a red flag, and maybe the way he responded was due to a certain attachment style. We're going to get into that in a second. We also have, and of course he said no regrets, but just 2 days ago, this interview, he said he did have regrets in the Variety interview, but right here he said he had no regrets.
You, in the moment or watching it back, did you have any second thoughts at any point of like, oh God, did I do the right thing? How do you deal with that?
I look back at everything and try not to live with any regret, and I don't have any regret.
So,
all right, so of course that changes, and things do. Things change quickly, so there he was. And here we have a Bachelor Nation exclusive. Zach Shallcross, Serena Pitt, and Joe answer fan questions during live clickbait recording. Could you imagine if there was a storm outside and you got stuck in this room with these people? Could you imagine? I mean, 3 hours into it, you're like, good golly, please, I'll take my chances in the storm. Anyway, here's one of our favorites, Kelly Johns, asking a very intimate question of Zach.
Okay, hi, I'm Kelly.
Hi. Oh, I recognize you.
Yes, we met in the elevator. This is a question for both of you, men. It's kind of inappropriate. I apologize, but I've always
love where
wondered,
this is going.
I've watched the show since season 1. Okay, as men, you're making out with a lot of women. Well, Joe, you were only making out with Serena on the beach, but Zach, we see a lot of tongue, How do you manage everything below the waist with cameras around? Because we are all adults here. We know it happens. So I'm just curious, with the cameras,
Do you want
Sorry
to
if that's
that's a great question.
It's just human nature. It's natural.
It's natural. She sounds like a grandma. It's natural, Stevie. It's okay. Now get out of the hot tub. Not yet.
So
You go first.
Where are you going with this?
Sure. No, I'm just going to be honest. You get hard at times. We're guys. But I know that ABC is not going to show that I have an erection.
Yes, Serena.
So I'm out
Oh
there,
my
baby.
God.
I mean, you try like you try to like when Serena and I like we.
Don't bring me into this. Do not bring me into this. This question
like,
was
we
not
just-
directed at me. I want nothing to do
Like
with this question.
okay, so like it's like week 2, like we're making out in the pool. Like she gets out of the pool, I stay in the pool. Stay in the pool.
Stay in the pool. That's a clear for anyone out there. If the guy doesn't want to get out of the pool, give him a few minutes. He needs to think about some baseball scores.
Or the hot tub in Zach's case.
Zach's answer.
Do I have to answer it too?
Yes, you do, Zach. Tell us about your boners.
Kinda.
Is this a hard question, Zach?
I think Joe hits the nail on the head, but there's maybe
weird
not
metaphor.
like some keywords going around of like
Zach, you got boners, Zach.
no of
Don't
like
act like you never
no
got a boner
no
on
it was
the show,
like
Zach.
oh they need to check on my mic. You go, I'll stay. Every time, even in the water when I'm not even wearing a mic, they're like, we got to check his mic. And I'm like, you go. And I'm like,
He's like, the mic's got a feedback issue right now. There's a feedback on the mic. Well, look, leave it to Kelly Johns to ask a hit question like that to get some life out of these guys. And anyway, so I wanted to share what Dr. Diane said. Again, this is just a clip. The full interview with Dr. Diane, which, by the way, I absolutely adore my conversations with Dr. Diane Strakowski. The full interview is going to be hosted on the podcast only. Bachelor Rush Hour, the podcast, link in the comment section. What you need to do right now is click that link from your phone or wherever you listen to podcasts, and it'll take you to Stitcher, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, whatever the different places are, Apple Podcast. Give us a good 5-star review. I've got big interviews coming up. Dr. Diane, and this is just in the next 3 or 4 days, I've got Dr. Diane's full interview. I've got Clayton Eckerd. That's right. It's in the bag. It's recorded, and it's fantastic. I've got Chad from Game of Roses. So you're going to need to be there, and that's exclusively on the podcast, Bachelor Rush Hour, and I appreciate all the love and support for that. Okay, here's a quick clip of what Dr. Diane had to say from her expert level looking at it. And again, she's only looking at it as a viewer of the show, so we have to work by the constraints of the edit, but here's what she sees.
We saw him sit with Katie, listening to her story, being very genuine and very caring. We saw him listening to Brooklyn with her domestic violence story. We saw him with Kat. We saw him with Gabby. So he can have empathy when he likes the person. And so why I say I think he had a little ick with Greer is, to me, you're not one of the people who's probably going to continue. And somebody even asked the question, do you think maybe he self-sabotaged and picked a fight because it wasn't going to go very far? It's kind of like with Christina. You tell me she's dramatic and now I have an out, so I don't have to deal with the issue of whether I want to be an instant stepdad or not.
Right.
So I think when I say I wasn't surprised, for me, this is a continuation of something in psychology, and I'm just a media psychologist. I don't know this for sure. I give a lot of caveats. This is just what I'm seeing on TV with all the edits and all the people that I know and I've treated, that I think he has an anxious attachment style. And when somebody does something that he doesn't like and he needs to be in control and handle the narrative, that's when we see the edge. That's when we see the abruptness that some people called it rude. We see that edge in that moment.
Do you think the show knows this about him when they're in the casting process? Like, do they go, we need the anxious attachment? That's the quadrant of contestant that's going to do well. Is that something that they're looking at?
Yes. You know, there's also just who Zach is, right? People are saying he's the vanilla white guy. But I think we saw a little bit of this with Rachel. We saw when, and I might have said this on your show before, but I'll repeat it, that in attachment theory, which is what I do, you only see someone's edges when they're in a threat situation. You only see who they really are when it's stressful and when the chips are down. So I say we're all like tea. You don't see who's somebody, their flavor until we're in hot water. And he's the hot water boils as the show goes on. So episodes 1 through 3, he's still in control. He's got multiple people. The stress mounts when you get close to the end and maybe somebody self-eliminates or you realize that you don't get to have total control. And that's when things get tough. And when Zach was in this position with Rachel, and I still go back to that, like there was some code word that we're just going to say we have differences. And then all of a sudden he came around a bit dramatic and said, you know, she's one person this way, one person this other way. And that to me felt like the anxious, angry person who was hurt.
And a huge thanks to everyone who's been coming on the channel to talk, Dr. Diane Strakowski and the future guests that we have, and some of the more notable alumni that have given us their time. We appreciate all that love, support, and respect. Thank you all so much for that. If you want to keep seeing conversations like mine with Dr. Diane and the ones that are coming up with Clayton and other former leads, if you want to keep seeing those happen from the point of view that I have, Bachelor Rush Hour, the podcast. That's where you need to be. If you want to support us in any other ways, financially, or just give us some love, bread in the tip jar, you can go to patreon.com/Dave Neal. I'm going to be traveling this week. I'm going to be heading to Indonesia on Wednesday, so I'm going to have some extra content for you guys. Don't tune away. There will be content for you every work day. And if you enjoy a little weekend, pick me up, hit the like button, leave a comment, and we'll see you guys later. Have a good weekend, everybody.